Justice, running courts together? Imagine that.
Hi, welcome back to Team Justice, running courts together, where the robe meets reality.
And the heavy docket meets the realities of time management, especially for training needs. Oh my God.
Hi, I'm Kim Walden, Tukwila Municipal Court Judge.
And I'm Trish Kinlow, Tukwila Judicial Branch Administrator.
And if you listened to episode 1, you heard us talk about court culture, leadership, the judge-administrator partnership, and why that relationship matters more than almost anything in court.
Yeah, we also talked about the reality that many of the courts reaching out for help over the last few years weren't doing so because of a lack of commitment or talent, but because systems, support, and structure weren't always in place.
So for this episode, for episode 2, we wanted to build on the foundation that we already kind of set in episode 1. And that's talking about one of the most practical tools courts have to support their teams and the strength of their operations, and that's training.
Yeah, specifically internal training. Training that's realistic for small courts, training that doesn't require new positions, big budgets, outside consultants. That's the kind of training we're talking about.
And we're calling, in this episode, Training Tuesdays. Not because it has to happen on Tuesdays, doesn't really have to happen on that day, but because it's about creating a habit, a rhythm, a shared expectation that learning is just a part of the job.
Yeah, and just like episode 1, the conversations is for new judges, new administrators, and veteran teams alike, because even strong courts benefit from stepping back and asking, are we setting our people up to succeed?
So today we're going to walk through why training matters, the realities that small courts face, how to build an easy internal program, and then we'll end with a real-world example that many of you, including us, are living through right now, the statewide Courts of Limited Jurisdiction Case Management System, commonly called the CLJ-CMS rollout, statewide rollout. A massive project that has expanded over a decade, and the work has been intense by state agencies, justice partners, and hundreds of court employees.
Our goal today isn't to overwhelm you. We're not trying to overwhelm you by telling you need to do something else, but it's to give you something usable, something you can take back to your court and adapt immediately. We will go over some basics and then talk about the real world struggle, the CLJ-CMS rollout, and the local training required to get your court ready.
And later, we'll be joined by our very own court technology and training supervisor, Candace Morrison. And she's going to discuss training plans that she implemented in the efforts to get our own court team up to speed with the new technology that we need to be prepared for in order to make a smooth rollout. So with limited state resources, local training and preparation is really key to each court's success.
Yeah, it's critical.
So let's start with the obvious, but it's often overlooked. The question, why does training even matter?
Well, training matters because when people understand their roles, their systems, and the why behind the work, errors subside.
Right. When those errors decrease, confidence increases, which frankly can be just as important. And people are less hesitant, they're less fearful of making mistakes, which often leads to mistakes, and they're more willing to step in when help is needed.
And burnout reduces, right? When staff constantly feel unsure or unprepared, everything takes more energy and more time.
And the coverage improves. When more people understand what each other is supposed to do and they understand processes, the court becomes more resilient. You're able to bounce back when somebody is out.
And it's important that we understand training isn't about skill. It's about the psychological safety. That's what it is. And people work better when they feel supported, and by providing training is one of the ways that we can support our teams.
Imagine with that cross-training, it's support from their fellow team members.
Absolutely, especially for a small court.
Yeah, and there's an enormous reality that we can't overlook when it comes to training or frankly in anything that courts are expected to do. There is that, as we call it, the small court reality. So let's talk about that. And frankly, if you're listening to this, that means most of you are living it just as we are.
Yes. Small courts operate with limited staff, limited budgets. there's rarely extra capacity. They just don't have that support that they need.
And let's be real, big courts are experiencing this right now in a budget crunch. So it's kind of interesting that we still call the small court reality, expecting big courts to have big budgets. But reality is they're probably experiencing the same problems that small courts are often thought to experience. When somebody leaves, retires, or goes out unexpectedly, the impact can be immediately and is felt by everybody, especially if the skill set is owned by just that one person.
Right, and often there's no redundancy, right? One person holds critical knowledge, and that's a risk. That's always a risk for your courts when one person obtains the know-all of everything that happens in your court.
And so internal training is how small courts can protect themselves. Not by adding positions, but by sharing the knowledge intentionally, being able to cross-train, being able to cover somebody when they're out.
So what do we actually mean by training Tuesdays?
Right. It's not just Tuesday. It's short, it's consistent, it's intentional, and it's internal.
This is not about perfection. It's about predictability.
Right. Knowing it's coming, knowing that you're going to have 20 to 40 minutes, maybe during a team meeting or during a period of time when you're off the bench or when you're not in the middle of running reports. It could be a time to get together as a group, one topic, one objective.
Yep. And when training becomes a part of your culture, like we have here in Tukwila, where learning is definitely a part of our culture, it stops feeling like an interruption or starts feeling like more like of an investment.
Right. And Tuesday meaning we know it's coming, it's expected, and we're going to engage in something that's thoughtful and meaningful and important to the success of our court. So where should courts focus? What do we need to do in training?
Start with your core duties, the things that have to be done on a daily basis, and make sure everyone understands the basics, not just how to do their job, but how it fits into the court as a whole.
Right, a good place to start are policies and procedures. Obviously, you want to go over that with new employees, but it's important to make sure that it's consistently trained. Assumptions linger. If you think something is supposed to be done or it's the way it's always been done, that can drift from group to group, from years to years, and it may not actually reflect what your current requirements are or what your current policies are.
Customer service is critical. Courts are often people's most stressful point of contact with the government.
Yeah, and I appreciate that that's been a part of your mission that you've had in your career and how you've believed that, teaching customer service is a way for that front-facing court team to represent justice. If you want to comment a little bit more about that.
Well, we have to understand, out of everybody who comes to the court, usually the only people who see them are the front line. Everybody who comes to court doesn't necessarily go in the courtroom, doesn't necessarily meet with probation or with their attorneys, but they always come to the front counter. And their experience at the front counter kind of determines what their thought process as it relates to their trust and confidence in the judicial branch. How you treat them when they come here really impacts the public's trust and confidence in our judicial system.
And that normally doesn't come naturally. A lot of that comes from training. So I appreciate not only your skill set in that regard, Trish, but your commitment to that. And safety and wellness also is important, especially for your frontline staff. We can't overlook the fact that our team members may be experiencing trauma. So safety and wellness is actually a critical component and shouldn't be overlooked when you're talking about training.
And cross-training. No blur roles, right? But to ensure continuity, that everybody understands what the court is doing.
One of the biggest misconceptions about training, especially when it comes to these team meeting trainings or internal trainings or training Tuesdays, that we're learning something from someone else. Like we have to invite somebody from the outside to come in to teach us how to engage with customers, to do better at a particular job, or to learn about new laws and legislation or a better way to do things.
And sometimes that's true, because sometimes you need to bring somebody from the outside. It's kind of like with being a parent, you tell your child something over and over again, but it's not until that auntie or that uncle or that cousin or somebody else comes in and tells them the same thing, then they get it. But for the most part, in reality, your most effective trainers are often already in your building on your team.
Yeah, and that peer-to-peer training not only builds confidence in the people you've assigned to do the training, because obviously they're going to have to do a little bit of homework, they're going to have to prepare, but it also builds mutual respect. Having your court team members, let's say one of your team members who sits on your infraction desk, teach how to process those infractions to the rest of the team. It builds that respect and then the confidence of that particular team member. So if that team member is out for a week on vacation, no problem. You can have somebody else step in who's prepared and has had the training to perform the duties of that desk.
And leadership support is essential. Judges and administrators, we don't have to lead every session, right? But we do have to value it. So we need to show up when our teams are offering this training. We need to be in the audience, right? And in fact, one of the best ways to really learn a topic is to teach it.
Yeah.
Because once you start digging into it and preparing it to share with everybody else, you begin to fine tune it, right? So take advantage of this opportunity to have your team members who have experience or who are performing certain duties. Train your other team members. It gives them the opportunity to research what's important about their work and polish their presentation skills. Everybody needs to have some form of a presentation skills. This is a way to develop them in those areas.
Yeah, and prepare them for the next step or the evolution of their career as a court professional. I like that. Yes, and what a great way to build self-confidence and respect within your team. You can't undervalue that at all. And when leadership shows that training matters, the team follows. It matters to them as well. And it shows that they matter to you.
And training fails when it's too complex or too optional.
Right. So calendar it. Treat it like any other critical court function. You calendar, when people are coming to court, when there's vacation, when court calendars, specific court calendars are being held. Do that with training too. Show everyone on your court team that this is a critical court function.
Yep. And rotate your facilitators so no one gets burnt out, and people get used to hearing other people's voices.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to just share not only the opportunity, but to share the experience and as a part of their professional development. But keep it simple and focused, especially on what's coming next, so that it's actually a real world training event. And we're going to talk about that soon when we talk to Candace about our CLJ CMS project. It's a real world event. It keeps it exciting. It keeps people engaged. They know they're receiving training that's going to be useful in their futures and actually critical to the work that they're doing.
And one thing I want to say about training is you want to document it. You document it for not just current staff, but you document it for future staff. And everyone will thank you. They'll be pleased that they have something to go to as a result of the training.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, because if your team members apply for, say, a supervisor position or a job in another court and you're supportive and they need documentation that they've had training in, whether it's the CLJ CMS or it's leadership training, anti-harassment training, or any kind of training that you've documented, it helps them in their future and again supports their professional development.
We're really pleased to welcome someone who has been central to our court's preparation for the new case management system. Our own court technology and training supervisor, Ms. Candace Morrison. Thanks for joining us today, Candace.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Candace, for listeners who may not know about your role, can you tell us a little bit about what you do for the court and what your responsibilities are when it comes to technology and training?
Yeah, absolutely. So I make sure that all the tech court systems daily run smoothly and that the team is trained and confident in their positions and that they have resources to troubleshoot technology challenges independently. I like to say we like to grow learners. So we want everybody else to be able to solve their own problems and keep learning and teaching each other. I also assist in or run court system project management, working closely with staff, IT, third-party vendors, and stakeholders.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I feel so fortunate that we have this position. Thank you, Trish, for creating that position. And
yes,
we obviously found the perfect person to slide right in. I do feel like we are unique in that regard in having this.
When the CLJ CMS rollout became a reality for our court, what was the first thing you realized about the level of preparation staff would need?
Given the scale of the transition, Our team needed proactive, regular, and intentional exposure to the new system to build their confidence and make the transition more successful. That's all we wanted to do with this, is just make the transition more successful and easier on the team. We needed to start right away because the more exposure, the better. So we've been doing this for months already, and we still have at least a month in between the actual formal training that AOC offers that we'll be also doing our own exposure sessions. So we've been doing this for several months now.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic. So that's some of the feedback that we received from early adopter courts or pilot courts, was that they didn't have that extra time to prepare in advance and just relied on the AOC formal training. So I would assume, and we'll see, that this particular preparation will be beneficial when that formal training does roll out, that our team members will already be familiar with the product and will be able to jump right into formal training with far much more confidence. But my question then, Candace, is when you looked at that challenge, when you were first assigned to take this on, how did you start thinking about breaking down this massive project into something that was more manageable for our team?
Bite-sized pieces for sure. So regular exposure over a long period of time. We started at the beginning, just introductory material, and we increased as our knowledge increased. We carved out weekly homework assignments that might take anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes for members to complete. And then we spent about 20 or 30 minutes reviewing them as a group each week. And that's included in our team meeting that is already scheduled. We already have a weekly team meeting built into our weeks. And then it took me about an hour each week to go through the material and create questions as I'm viewing the material.
And Trish, just a question for you, because I think that's fantastic. There's homework, but we don't mean literal homework. I mean, these are things that I would imagine we've expected our court team members to do during their weekday. You, as a court leader and a manager of people, how did you make sure that got done or ensure that people had time to do that?
Well, I had a meeting with the leadership team, and we talked about it. And just listening, like you said, to the other courts that have already onboarded to the new system, lessons learned, I'm taking that to heart. And one of the things that they've always said is if we had exposed our team to the system a little more and done the training. And so since we have these weekly meetings, why not use them as training sessions as well? We pitched it to Candace, and she thought it was a great idea, and she just took it and ran with it, and she's been doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, Candace, I've jumped in on a couple of those team meetings and watched and seen people, really take their homework to heart and are doing it, and everybody seems engaged, and it actually seems like they've enjoyed it. It's something different than their normal routine day. And so in that regard, I think it answers a lot of the things that Trish and I pointed out earlier in our lesson, but about keeping people engaged. And I think that a lot of people, had this sort of spark of interest because it was something new.
Yeah. And I really like what you said, Candace, about everybody has a different learning style, because it was funny because I had to do a little confessional with Valerie. I said, watching these videos, I find my mind squirreling. So then I miss what I'm supposed to be paying attention to. But with that business process manual, I can find the stuff that I'm looking for. And so, it is true. Everybody has a different learning style. One style is stronger than the other one. And so that's been amazing. One of the things that we talked about earlier today as it relates to internal training, what approach did you take to building a training structure for our court?
Yeah, so every training situation is going to be different depending on the material, on the learner, like we were just talking about, and also the objective. In general, at Tukwila, we regularly incorporate learning opportunities into our weekly meetings. We try to create a culture of learning at Tukwila. We also have extensive written procedures as a learning resource for the team, and they're also encouraged to update them and as the tasks change so that they can become a part of the learning and training process. I personally try to train in a way that educates someone else, so it's not just me doing it for them, but they actually are engaged and they know where to find the resources that they need to learn themselves. We also, like we were talking about earlier, try our best to get to know each person's learning style so that we can incorporate that. And we celebrate achievements here at Tukwila to invite staff to teach the rest of the team when they learn something new. So we're constantly celebrating learning and getting people out there to continue their learning process.
Yeah, I love that. I think oftentimes people overlook that one of the best ways to train somebody is to actually have them teach it. And you learn and you become sort of your own little expert, and then share your expertise with your peers. I love that. For courts who are listening and are still preparing for their CMS, what are some of the most effective things that you did to help staff actually learn about the system instead of just hearing about it and being thrown right into the fire?
Yeah, well, for the case management system, it's really about exposure, not perfection. We stress that a lot during our sessions, and knowing where your resources are so that it isn't shocking when we actually go live with a new system. So we used videos, written procedures, or what AOC calls BPs, or business processes, that AOC has already created. So it's not like you have to reinvent the wheel. You just go to the resources that are already there. We found that instead of just watching videos and looking at these business processes, we decided that creating guided questions would keep everyone engaged. And I think that's what the whole training process was about for this, is making sure people stayed engaged with the material and accountable.
And so when you say there, so where is that stuff? Where can they, where can people grab that?
Yes, absolutely. Great question. So it's on Inside Court's website. They have a page that is completely dedicated to the CLJ CMS system. So you can actually find Judges Edition, Enterprise Justice. You can find the e-filing portal instructions there. All of the suites that are under the new project are all there, and they have written business procedures that are all there for everybody to view.
So, Candace, my question, one of the biggest challenges in any training program is keeping people engaged. How did you encourage participation and make sure the staff felt comfortable asking questions?
Absolutely. So we integrated those training sessions into our weekly team meetings. So I went through all the material and created questions that would guide every user through the material so that they would stay engaged with the material. It's not to trick them or to test them necessarily. They're merely simple questions that reflect the material so that they stay engaged as they're reading or as they're viewing. And then we came together with our team meetings and we went over the material together. Sometimes we did a round robin style where everybody got to answer a question. Sometimes we played a game with it, whoever could answer first. Sometimes we had everybody answer the exact same question, and I think that just helped everybody stay engaged. We really focused on learning styles as well. Everybody comes to the table with a different learning style, so we tried to learn everybody's learning style just as a general practice here at Tukwila. And then we try to tailor our training sessions around everybody's learning styles as we can. We also found that being accountable, turning in your homework really worked for all of us. And it's something that we all wanted to do so that we all could make sure we were accountable and staying engaged with the material on a weekly basis.
Now this is, I think, a question for both of you. When this process started, did you notice a shift in the team, the confidence as the training progressed?
I'd have to say yes, I did. And here's how I knew we were going down the right path. We sent a couple of our members over to the line staff training, and AOC set up where people could kind of go in and look at it and punch the buttons and things like that. And so when my team came down, I got with them. I said, so what do you guys think? They said, yeah, seems really easy. Like, it all makes sense now. You know, if we hadn't had that training, it might be a different, but we had that training, so we were exposed to it. So yeah, looks like it's going to be easy for us to, adapt and transition to the new EJ system. Candace, what have you noticed?
That same example actually came to mind as well. And the excitement and confidence that they came back with, and then they understood what the vision was about these trainings. So everybody was even more so on board and enjoying the training sessions. Even I had the chance to go to an early user training, and I was very familiar with the screens that we were in and the terms they were using, because it is a different language. So yeah, the confidence is definitely very high at Tukwila right now.
That had to feel good to experience that firsthand. All right, so Candace, quick question round. One training tool you couldn't live without.
Grace. We could all use more of it.
Good.
And
That's
yes.
a good one. Yeah.
Very
Yes.
good answer.
Very good answer.
What was your biggest training surprise?
Well, I knew there were different learning styles, but sometimes you can have as many learning styles as you have people in the room.
It must take a seriously committed and patient trainer when you make that discovery. So we appreciate you.
Absolutely.
All right, so what's one thing every court should do besides obviously the training before the CMS launch?
Yeah, I would say immediately and often dive into the video and written resources that are already in Inside Courts. The resources are already there. I say spend a little time now and save a lot more later.
I need to write that down for myself. I really like what you said about Grace, and I want to do something with that. So Tukwila, yeah, we're going to do something with that Grace.
We constantly talk about Grace as we're in team meetings. In fact, just this last week, we were talking about it again. Remember, because we're getting new laptops and then we have the new system coming out right after that. Just reminding each other, have grace with yourself and have grace with others. Yourself is really important too, and we forget to do that sometimes.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us, Candace.
We really appreciate you joining us today. I mean, this was a wealth of information and even helpful for me. And I work here with you every day, so I'm sure it's helpful to people who aren't working here with you every day. So thank you so much. You're doing a fantastic job with preparing us to transition to the new case management system.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Thank you for
Candace.
having me.
Okay.
How did this look for CLJ CMS? Relatively easy scheduled assignments, preparing answers ahead of time.
Right, the group meetings were basically staff meetings, and there was shared experience, shared solutions. So there were questions that Candace prepared in advance for people to watch the AOC videos and for them to review and submit answers to questions. So they had homework that Trish and the leadership team allowed them time to do, and then they were able to get consistent reviews from their peers, and most importantly, it was mandatory participation.
So here's what we want you to remember. With the training, start small, be consistent. Say it with me. Start small, be consistent.
It's important to remember, training is leadership. It's a commitment to team development that boosts morale and supports succession planning. And it's important for not only your operation, but for your team members.
Okay.
So remember, training isn't a luxury. It's a responsibility, a leadership responsibility.
Amen. It is absolutely a leadership responsibility. When courts invest in their people take better care of the court. Investing does not necessarily need to take money, but investing your time in ensuring that they are knowledgeable in the things that they're doing, as well as have opportunities to share the things that they're doing with the rest of their teams.
Yeah, absolutely. This is simple. It's cost effective. In fact, shouldn't cost you much at all. Spend some time, set some time aside, be committed to make sure that not only are you training, but that you're giving learning opportunities that are going to benefit your court team and your entire court, not only in the near future, but in the long run, to help their professional development and help you sustain your operations. And thanks for joining us for episode 2 of Team Justice Running Courts Together. And please join us next month for episode 3, The Small Court Advantage, Why Limited Resources Can Sometimes Create the Strongest Court Teams.
We'll see you here next month. Team Justice, running courts together.